This is The Great Outdoors with Jason White, exploring the great outdoors in Pennsylvania and beyond. Brought to you by the Mariana Outdoorsmen Association and by Wild Acres Farm, Fishery, and Regulated Hunting Grounds. Now, The Great Outdoors with Jason White.
Hello, friends. I'm Jason White. Welcome to The Great Outdoors. I'm happy to be here with you today. It's a beautiful day, actually, in southwestern Pennsylvania. Spring is certainly right around the corner, and looking forward to it. I just got off the tractor, did a little plowing this morning, and when I'm done, I'm going right back. So we will dive into it. I want to start off by giving a special thanks to our sponsors, the Mariana Outdoorsmen Association. You can join the MOA today at marianaoutdoors.com. Again, marianaoutdoors.com. Accepting memberships right now, open for the calendar year. Memberships run on a calendar year. If you want to come and take a tour, give us a call at 724-579-0924, or you can always message us on Facebook at Mariana Outdoorsman Association at Facebook. And I also just want to acknowledge all the different media outlets, Anchor Radio, Spotify, MOA Outdoor channel on YouTube. Lots of ways to follow the association, and also obviously also this show. Wild Acres Farm, Fishery, and Regulated Hunting Grounds. If you're looking to book a spring turkey hunt this year, if you're interested in a fall deer hunt, if you're interested in a guided upland bird hunt, guided trout fishing trip, please check us out. No fence. Everything's wide open. 724-579-0924. Website 10mileco.org. 10mileco.org. That being said, I'm going to dive into it today. I have a couple topics that I want to go into that I think are certainly, with everything going on with crop damage, things going on with wildlife. I think it's time to have a good conversation about wildlife management units. For those that do not know what wildlife managements are, they are basically borders. They are subsections of the state. There are currently, according to my research, 15 of them throughout the state of Pennsylvania, managed by the Pennsylvania Game Commission. Why are they important? Well, they're important because they're basically the main tool to carve out sections of the state for tag allocations, management of wildlife as a whole. But the interesting tidbit that I think people are overlooking with these wildlife management units, they were established by the Pennsylvania Game Commission, certainly from the biologists, as a premise, I would say reflective of that of Western states. A lot of Western states have a lot lower population densities. Counties, certainly, you might have more wildlife than you do people living in it in some capacities. So you'll see these zones, I would say, out in the western states. Certainly places like Wyoming is a good example if you go and do any research. The way Pennsylvania used to be, we used to be based by county. So obviously, with all the counties, you have all those points to establish data. If you talk to anybody about this now, if it's anybody, I would say they would have a counter argument or a counter view of the wildlife management units. So if somebody said, well, wildlife management units are based upon, wildlife and habitat, blah, blah, blah. In theory, this is correct. In theory. But that's not true. So I would reference anybody, if you do a simple Google search, go to the Pennsylvania Game Commission website, you are going to find not only the I'm going to call it the master map, with all of the units displayed from 1A all the way to, which is on the western side of the state, all the way over to what is classified as 5D down around Philadelphia. What is extremely important, the way that this map was established is by overlaying 6 other maps. Those maps include a map that is laid out for bear. There's a map laid out for deer. There's a map that's laid out for fur bearers. There's a map that is laid out for pheasants. There's a map laid out for turkeys. And there is a map laid out for quail. The interesting tidbit about this, if you were to pull this up, which anybody watching this right now, you can actually see. I don't know if you can see that. But if you go on the Game Commission's website, these maps are available for you to see. 5 out of the 6 layered maps are all based upon boundaries of counties. So bear is a surrounding of 3 counties. Deer, it's every county. So every county, the way we manage deer biologically, the way the Pennsylvania Game Commission is looking at it, which anybody can go and look at this, is by county. Fur bearers, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They actually have 6 regions, I guess, is the best way to describe it. But again, all around the boundaries of political boundaries, county boundaries. Pheasants, same thing, boundaries. Quail, same thing, boundaries. But lo and behold, there's one map that is not, and that is turkeys. So again, if you actually go and pull this up on the website, it's a very interesting thing. So the way basically that we are managing bear, deer, fur bearer, pheasants, and quail is extremely correlating to the turkey map. So basically all these maps have overlapped and crisscrossed, 5 out of the 6 having political boundaries, but the turkey map is not. The turkey map is basically the Swiss cheese, I would call it, of all. So it raises the question, and this is something for everybody to ponder and think about. If we're acknowledging bear to be a simple specified political boundary location, if we're looking at deer, if we're looking at fur bearers, pheasants, quail, how are we then taking this turkey map, which has nothing to do with these other species, and we're basically now, for example, I'm going to go with deer because deer is the most, I would call it, pinpointed. So if you look at this map that I'm referring to here, for anybody at home that can see this on this video, you will see, look at that. That's all the counties of Pennsylvania. That is pinpoints of accuracy. So you could either have every county to collect data, or you can have the 15 management units to collect data. It is my professional opinion, based on statistical, dealing with numbers and statistics throughout my life in my different capacities of work. The more data points you can have and the more precise you can be, you're going to get better information. And I'll give you a good example. So right now we're here in 2A is the classification. 2A touches Westmoreland County, Fayette County, Greene County, Washington County, Beaver County, and Allegheny County. So hypothetically, if people in Allegheny, Beaver wanted to buy a bunch of doe tags in 2A, and they only had any intention, their only intent was to hunt maybe, the bordering areas of 2A. Well, what happens to Greene County? Greene County is actually totally in 2A. What happens to the sections of Fayette, the western portion of Fayette County? What happens to southern Washington? There's risks that without having good quantitative data and not being able to target where you actually need deer to be harvested, you run the risk of mismanagement and lack of harvest being taken in areas that they're needed. If you look at this, I would say this management plan, and I would also say strategy by the Game Commission. I think it was a if I had to give an argument to it, I would say it was a trial. It was a test. I would strongly state that there is not any quantitative data to justify the management units staying. I feel very, very strongly that we need to go back to a county-based system You're getting basically more than four times the amount of data that you're collecting right now. You would be able to sell more deer tags in certain counties where they need to, and you could sell less where they don't need to be sold. The way things are right now, to me, it's feeding the crop damage issue because you're not. Because here's the issue: not only is this a giant problem, it then rolls into, okay, well, you have the Deer Management Assistance Program, you have the Ag Tag Program. If those programs were operating effectively, efficiently, like a well-oiled machine, we might be having a little bit of a different conversation right now. Might be. But we're not. That's not where we are in this point in time in life. Where we are right now is, the Game Commission has full-blown opened up the red tags, also referred to as ag tags, and there's extreme conversations about the DMAP as well. I was really blessed and privileged and honored to participate in a panel discussion this past weekend at the Fayette County Fairgrounds. There was an event hosted by the Fayette County Farm Bureau, Pennsylvania Farm Bureau, collaborating with the Pennsylvania Game Commission, and then basically it was all the elected officials throughout Fayette County at the county and state level that collaborated to make this happen. So extremely thankful for that. Thankful for them. But there was a lot of hard conversations that were had. I want to highlight the fact that these management units got brought up. I certainly think it's something for everybody to think about and ponder. When we sit here and say, "Oh, well, we should do something," well, there needs to be science and fact based behind it. And to my point, I'm not seeing the science. I'm not seeing the analytical choice to go down the path that we're on right now. I think these units need to go away. We need to go back to county based. I can't be any clearer about it. They're not working. They're confusing. You could say a zone, a management unit. Let's just say it's 2G. I bet you if I went to 10 people and asked them in southwestern Pennsylvania, where's 2G, I would bet you the majority of them would have no clue. But if I said, hey, I'm going to hunt Clarion County, or hey, I'm going to hunt Cameron County, Clinton County, Lycoming County, so more than likely they're going to know or have a general idea where the county's located within correlation to the state as a whole. These are just simple facts. Let's also not forget, acknowledging a county is a great opportunity for travel and tourism, because hypothetically, let's say there's a county that's got a great deer population. Well, guess what? Hey, that buck was shot in Fayette County. Well, guess what? People in other states, people in other places hear about that. Hey, that's a great opportunity. Then it opens up the door for whether that's paid hunts, whether that's hunting leases, it's opportunities for landowners as well, because they realize then that the people could come here and want to experience the great outdoors in our area. So it's a thing about like promotion as well. Like obviously it's enjoyment. The number one reason the Game Commission exists is obviously to follow their charter. But when you look at the big scheme of things, managing wildlife with hunting is a tool, but there's also economic implications. So when we talk about this, you have to really dive into, what are all the benefits of people coming here. There's a lot of farms out there that aren't being utilized anymore. There's a lot of land that isn't being utilized. Well, hey, if people knew about what we have to offer, if people knew, hey, there was, good quality deer herds in these counties, again, presents opportunities for leases, presents opportunities for travel and tourism, hotels. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I would also highlight the fact in this conversation, this is also why Senate Bill 67 is so critical and important. A lot of people from other states, don't necessarily, especially if it's a bordering state, people are willing to drive after work on a Friday and, hunt all day Saturday, hunt Sunday, and then drive home Sunday night. Problem in Pennsylvania currently, we only have those 3 days. So I just know from experience as well with doing guiding and outfitting, having that Sunday available is extremely beneficial to getting people to come and enjoy what we're doing here. So I say that as another, how do I want to describe it? Another opportunity, another thing that we should all be thinking about and considering, when we have these discussions about wildlife management, but also the social factors. When we had our meeting at the fairgrounds, there was a lot of people upset about the extreme amounts of crop damage that they're experiencing, the financial losses. Really, to say it was disheartening and heartbreaking is probably an understatement. I tell people, we need immediate solutions, and people are advocating for immediate solutions. I think a lot of these things, when you talk about wildlife management units, if we talk about tag allocations, I would even open up the door about education. We have to do a better job of getting in the schools. I've been mocked in the past, basically put down by different people on school boards, telling me that, whoa, why would you want hunting and fishing in schools? Holy smokes, why would you not want hunting and fishing in schools? Environmental science, biology, physics, mathematics, trigonometry. The list goes on and on and on. Agriculture. I could literally go for hours talking about educational opportunities and benefits and how to piggyback wildlife. We're missing on the little things. We're missing connecting back with what's around us. And that to me is just utterly sad. It's why you're seeing less and less kids wanting to go on a stream and more kids wanting to pick up a video game. Whose fault is that? Schools are a great opportunity. Kids are there Monday through Friday during the day. That's the time to captivate their attention. That's the time to plant the seed. I'm not necessarily advocating that. How do I want to say this? I'm not saying that we need to push that somebody has to go hunting as a student. But what I am saying is that we have to teach kids about the outdoors in general and their connectivity to the outdoors and how you have to live, I would say, in harmony with nature. You have to acknowledge that if you do something, for example, if you mismanage deer and they then go and destroy crops, it then causes food prices to go up, because if there's less crop, supply and demand, this now ties into economics. We don't do that enough. There's not enough of those conversations where kids connect, there's correlation, where we connect the dots and correlate these different factors. So I strongly feel education with children is extremely imperative and important. And that comes down to Department of Ed, that comes down to Game Commission, Fish Commission, collaborating, and I would even say Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture, conducively working together to get into schools and provide curriculum and be engaging. Cannot stress that enough. A little more about the meeting that we had, or the town hall or panel discussion from last Saturday. There was a lot of great conversations that were brought up. There were some things we discussed about, the concern about the units, as I said. There was a lot of great discussions about changes for the future. I know the Game Commission right now is looking at adding QR codes to the backs of the hunting licenses. That way, whenever you harvest an animal, you'll be able to scan that QR code and it'll take you to, a page to where you would just, boom, upload date, time, etc. And it would just populate your information, harvested it, and boom, you're done. Getting better data, collecting data. That being said, we were told at the meeting that it could take 2 years for that to happen. Why 2 years? I have no idea. I can't answer that right now. I didn't get to ask that question. I mean, heck, there's QR codes on coffee cups at Cheats. One would think that we'd be able to get them on to the back of the hunting licenses to make it easier and more effective for folks to, report their kill. That also highlights the fact of what we talked about in the past about the butchers being a viable option as well, to make sure that if the deer tag was not scanned, that they could scan it. Clearly, they need to be compensated, folks. Anybody that scans that tag is doing their part. Um, Conservation numbers are critical because that's how tag allocations happen. Um, Again, statistically, the counties provide more points to have data as opposed to the units, which, heck, there's one particular unit I know that's like 11 counties. Touches 11 counties. I shouldn't say it encompasses 11 counties, but it's kind of Swiss cheeses 11 counties. So, data is extremely critical. Garbage in is garbage out. Good stuff in means good stuff out. So you have to think about that when you think about data and also wildlife management as a whole. It's critical and imperative to get good data. So the QR code thing was discussed. We also discussed about clearly there needs to be amendments and changes to ag tags and DMAP and to make it more efficient and effective. The online application, I actually got my link here recently. I got to sit down and do it, but to my understanding, it will be online once you do your initial application. In the past, it was never that way. In the past, you had to do everything a paper application every year. So, that's a problem. But it sounds like solutions are being implemented, and I certainly feel that's from our efforts with the Pennsylvania Farm Bureau and also all of our coalition partners. So I want to acknowledge that. Have really been building a lot of great relationships with folks, and certainly looking forward to growing the team and working with people. The one thing I tell folks, and certainly going through these regulatory and even legislative, political conversations, certainly one would think that wildlife and hunting, fishing, sporting community, these are middle of the road items politically. They're things that impact everybody everywhere. These really aren't, in my opinion, controversial topics. Now, I will say the topics have become a little controversial because of politicization internally, with people getting involved in these agencies with a political agenda or a view, and that to me is extremely concerning, extremely alarming. I know I've talked in the past about just the fact of how we manage raptors in the state. We have situations and scenarios with migratory birds that we manage. We manage those migratory birds with hunting. That is the management tool. But if you look at things such as hawks, the mechanism is an utter nightmare. It's permits. It's permits through 3 different agencies: U.S. Fish and Wildlife, U.S. Department of Agriculture, and the Pennsylvania Game Commission. Literally insane. It does not work. Completely inefficient, ineffective, and just kind of highlights the fact of management practices, where bureaucracy, when people get involved in certain positions and then they want to push an agenda. Look what's going on. The wolf reintroduction across the country. Look, it's no different than the deer situation. Too many deer in proximity to farms and people equates to nothing but bad. Car wrecks, vehicular accidents in general, crop damage, inflation with the economy, all correlated with deer. Point blank, that's fact. That doesn't mean that you can't go hunting the big buck and you can't, manage your land for habitat and wildlife to have giant deer. I'm not insinuating that at all. But what I am saying is that we have too many freaking deer, and that's point blank. And it directly has impacts in a negative way when the ecosystem and wildlife gets out of balance. Same thing with the wolves. You're putting an apex predator way too close to farms. Next thing you know, livestock's being killed, and it just creates an utter nightmare. So wildlife management and bureaucracy, I hate to say, have currently went hand in hand. But I'm all about, personally, I love the idea and the theory and the thought of science-based decisions, factual-based decisions. But that hasn't been, and I don't know that we're there yet. I think people are waking up to the realities of it. We could have this same conversation about the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission. Have done a lot of good, but there's been a lot of destruction and potholes, and I would say barriers. And to me, that's a problem. These are things that got to be discussed. You got to nail down solutions to problems. Can't be disenfranchising and discriminating or picking and choosing winners and losers. But I'll leave the Fish Commission for another day. But as we continued down the rabbit hole of the ag tags DMAP with this discussion, there was conversations about the fact that even the ag tag program in Southeast PA, down around Philadelphia, in the summertime, you're allowed to use bait. For the longest time, all you ever heard say was, bait connects to CWD. No, it doesn't. No. If that were true, we would never allow it in this state in any capacity, number one. Number two, why would you allow it where you have the highest proximity to people, where if there was open disease and if disease was going to spread, why would you allow it? The answer is very simple, because that's not true. When has anybody here really seen data to drive down the fact of what we're talking about? I understand there's data when you have overpopulation. I understand there's data when you talk about congregation of animals. I mean, holy smokes! When you talk about baiting, if you're managing a deer herd adequately, there shouldn't be that many deer. To my knowledge, the last time I heard a biologist from the Game Commission talk, they said Pennsylvania's habitat is conducive for approximately 6 deer per square mile, and currently we were at approximately 26 deer per square mile. That was straight out of the horse's mouth. That wasn't me. That was last summer when I was at a panel discussion. Actually, it was at the Fish Commission that they hosted it, but that was last summer. Point being with this, CWD is not because of baiting. Otherwise, even in these other states, they wouldn't be allowing it. Certainly, I feel any tool that we can provide to help quantitatively balance the herd and get it to where it needs to be, that's what we should do. So certainly in the ag tag program in the summer times, again, ag tags and DMAP are not antler deer. They are strictly does. But I don't see a problem whatsoever with being allowed to bait. I don't see an issue with it at all. I don't see a problem with it whatsoever. Clearly, if you have that many deer and there's always going to be the risk of disease. I know, there's the discussions about EHD. Heck, I know here in Southwest PA, we're not on any maps for CWD, but there were deer laying dead everywhere last year. I mean, literally, you'd go along the stream bottoms and it stunk. So, again, quantitative data, good decisions, making science-based decisions, I'm not somebody that like I do not like whatsoever to have a bureaucrat put out kind of fear mongering or comments that say, "Oh, well, you shouldn't do that because of science." Well, it's kind of like the management units. That was all. This has been a farce. Where, how can you utilize turkey flocks as a justified reason to set boundaries for deer? That doesn't make any sense at all. Like, I can't even grasp my brain around it that I'm even talking about it right now. But you know, at the end of the day, there are implications for people's decisions, whether they are within the agencies or on the outside. And I think the thing for me that was most heartbreaking about this past weekend was people asking for immediate solutions. And, certainly all ideas and thoughts need to be on the table for better management of wildlife. I think it should be an open forum discussion. People shouldn't be mad at one another. People need to be open minded to be able to talk about it. But, you know, we got a lot of problems here in Pennsylvania when it comes to how would I say this? To not only crop damage but also just wildlife management as a whole. And that goes up the chain all the way to the federal government with geese and avian influenza, and them getting into cattle fields. I mean, there's just a lot of things that we don't think about that impact each other. Biosecurity zones. If an avian, let's just say a goose has avian influenza, lands in a dairy pasture. Next thing you know, now the disease is there. They're walking around, tracking it around. Next thing you know, all the chickens get sick. It's reality. It's how some of these things happen. Um, the smallest of acts can have the biggest and utmost consequences, and sometimes in a negative way. That being said, um, I'm very hopeful right now in regards to what the Game Commission is doing. I have a lot of faith in the executive director, Steve Smith. He's been very forthcoming, saying that they're open to just about anything to get their hands around the deer issues. I see no way around the fact that there's going to have to be culling programs implemented in the state. Um, I don't see any way around it. You literally have the federal government going into the Flight 93 Memorial because the rose bushes are getting eaten, and they're going to implement a culling program. I mean, that raises a lot of other questions too about the federal and state parks. I think we need to have different scenarios to where places that they currently do not allow hunting, I think they really need to open it up in some capacity because, at the end of the day, you're still going to be hunting. It's just that now it's more of a, sending in sharpshooters. You're still hunting at the end of the day. So I think there needs to be a lot of discussions there. But these places to where we're out of control right now, the only way we're going to manage it long term is by better hunter participation, better analytical data with where do we need tags and how many deer need to be harvested. That's how you manage wildlife. But right now, we're not even there. Like, we need to get there, but we're not there yet. So basically what they're doing in these parks in the cities and in Flight 93 Memorial, some of these smaller town parks, I hate to tell you, everybody, but I guarantee you, if you go and research it, they're baiting the deer right now. They're shooting it with snipers, and then the deer are getting donated to the charitable food system. That's what's happening. They're doing this in defined applications, and it's been extremely hush-hush in many ways. Um, Again, until we get better management practices with the deer herds, the tag allocations, children being more engaged and involved, there's no other choice right now other than to implement culling programs to help these people. I mean, their livelihoods are literally being destroyed because they're being overrun with so many deer. I mean, it's literally almost to the point of infestation. You can't plant fields and think that you're going to let the wildlife eat everything and then think you're going to go to pick it in the fall And guess what? It's not there anymore. The animals ate half of your field. Well, guess what? There's no profit margin now. It's the realities. And everybody needs to be more open-minded to this conversation, I would hope. Compassionate, caring about the fact that this is happening to people. Guess what? These people put food on your table. These people put food on the shelves at the grocery stores, restaurants, etc. And again, I go back to wildlife management. Go and look what's going on right now with, just egg prices and whatnot across the country. There's a lot of correlating factors to things, even with avian influenza, etc. We just got to get our hands around it. We got to talk about these things. I thought that the panel discussion was fantastic. There were a lot of great topics discussed. It was a very civil conversation. But think about all I just talked about just on this episode, from management units to tags in the counties, to what tags do we need, to education, to the DMAP and the ag tag programs and how functionally they work, from QR codes to butchers being able to scan and report codes, to butchers actually getting paid without a calendar and a hat as a form of compensation, to the numbers of tags you're targeted for, being allowed to use bait in the summer, heck, even semi-automatics being allowed to be used in the summertime. There's just a lot of things that we need to really look in the mirror and have a hard conversation, because if we don't do it and come to the grasp the realities of where we are, we just have to make changes. And you know what? There's no point in living in the rearview mirror now of, but we need to learn from the mistakes. We need to learn how can we make it better. It's no different than the management units. I would argue it was a scientific test. It was a theoretical idea, but it's clearly not working. And you know what? It's impacting people's lives, and now we have to change. And we need to change because it's the right thing to do. Just because, and that also goes with education with the kids. That goes with properly paying the butchers, using technology, streamlining these systems. And I also got to mention too, game lands. That got brought up about adequately spending money back in the game lands, planting crops, planting food for the wildlife. I know I've talked about that on other shows. I actually have some information I'm trying to get right now to hopefully do a deep dive on that piece of the puzzle. Certainly when I do, I will. We're going to do another episode about the game lands. Looking ahead, just so you all know, got Senate Bill 67 right around the corner. Please, if you talk to your legislator across the country, if you talk to anybody in your county or across the state as a whole, Senator Dan Laughlin has Senate Bill 67. Just want to highlight the fact that legalizes Sunday hunting, puts agricultural representation, not Farm Bureau, but an agricultural representative with knowledge in agriculture on the Board of Commissioners from the Pennsylvania Game Commission. That's a good thing. Anybody ever has questions about that, happy to discuss. Master Hunter Program, the Game Commission's already doing this anyways, but that's being added. That's additional access to private property for hunters across the Commonwealth. That's a positive thing. And then some trespass reforms under Title 34. All good things, all positive things. Certainly, I hope all of you across the whole state that hear me saying this, Senate Bill 67 is good for Pennsylvania. It's good for everybody. We need to get it done. We need to get the Senate and the House to vote yes. We need the governor to sign off on it, and we need to move on to the next thing. It's the right thing to do. I cannot say that more adamantly. It's a positive thing, and we need to move on to other things on the agenda that need to be addressed for our collective benefit. That being said, again, I want to thank everybody. I want to acknowledge again the Marion Outdoorsman Association. And before I get off today, the last Saturday of the month of March, which is the 29th, the MOA is doing a collaborative gun bash with the American Oil and Gas Alliance. Fantastic organization. They're out there beating the drum about permitting reform, working on conservation stuff. I mean, fantastic organization. We're actually going to be having that bash on the 29th. It's at 19 North, Washington, PA. You can reach out to us on Facebook, Marion Outdoorsman Association. You can always give me a call at 724-579-0924. And then actually the 27th, which I'm going to go, this is going to be my discussion next week. But on the 27th at the Meadows Casino at 5 p.m., there's going to be a general permitting panel discussion. I'm going to really be talking about that next week, about general permits, just to kind of lay the groundwork for that panel. But it's free. It's open to everybody. Actually, if you go to my Facebook page, you'll see there's information about it, and there's actually a QR code for you to register. So certainly our door's open. We'd love to have you for that, because that's one of the things I'm talking about, the future discussions. General permitting absolutely needs fixed here in Pennsylvania. Wild Acres Farm Fisher and Regulated Hunting Grounds. Hey, book your hunt today. 10mileco.org, or give us a call at 724-579-0924. I'm Jason White. This has been The Great Outdoors, and I'll see you all next week.